Welcome to part 2 of my image of God or artwork. I began to put on a second coat of silver paint, and I wanted to use a roller. Using the roller allowed me more control over the process and created a rhythmical motion that was soothing to my nervous system. I received a smoother finish than if I used a brush, and I also felt the mirror was thicker and sturdier after it dried. It felt as though the mirror had more presence. It was defined. This stage of the process is about adorning the edges of the mirror. I do beading, lay yarn of synthetic fibers and natural fibers, and I add pictures of me throughout my life to the edges. On the side of the mirror that was once the sky, when I worked on the image horizontally, I wanted it to glitter, shimmer, and sparkle. I wanted to represent the cosmos, sunsets, sunrise, things like that. I added some glass beads to it first. Beading was new to me. I decided to work with 3 beads at a time, and every few rows or sections I had to tie a knot to secure those bead patches. I had recently purchased some sparkly yarn from an estate sale, and so I thought that would be really nice to add to a glittery, shimmery sky. It was difficult to glue down as the yarn was fuzzy and light in weight. It stuck easily to my tacky fingers. I chose colored yarn here that was related to those colors. And I've made 2 layers of this strips of sparkly yarn. The 2 layers make me think of 2 realms. In this process of laying down the yarn, I'm focused when you're focused, you use the front left brain. And I'm drawing on symbolism, which comes from the front right side of the brain. I'm defining lines and sections and areas, so this is like patterns. It's the mid-left brain. And I use colors in a controlled manner, so that's the mid-right brain. And lastly, that tacky sensation, as well as the feel of the yarn, is a lower reptilian right brain experience. This process accesses most of the expressive therapies continuum, meaning it accesses most of the brain and it can be mapped out. I really enjoyed the beading. I loved touching the beads. They felt interesting to my fingertips. Beading was time consuming. It slowed things down, yet it was easy for the most part. The beads didn't always fit on the needle, so I had to choose which ones worked. My goal here was to lay down gold first, then green, and then circle or enclose it all with a royal purple. Beading was meditative. It allowed me to ponder whatever was floating in my mind. When you are in this phase of the creative process, it is beneficial to record what you're thinking afterwards in a journal. Great stuff can come in when your brain is in this state. I decided to put some earthy toned, non-glittery yarn down on the earthy side of this image. The yarn was a natural fiber. It was made out of wool. And as you can see, I use green, browns, cream, and lastly, I will use orange. Attaching the yarn was once again a sensory experience. The squashing of the yarn for the flower bushes, or the smoothing out of the yarn to lay flat and straight. Once again, dividing the earth side of the mirror into sections or areas, and this squishing and layering or mixing the blue and magenta yarn strands stands out to me. These bushes of flowers that I created felt like fluffy clouds to me as I tapped on them and squished them together and wrapped the yarn fibers, twisting them up together. So as mentioned previously, when creating an image that requires multimedia, one uses more of their brain, more of the expressive therapies continuum, and allowing for more profound realizations. It was while creating flower patches with the blue and magenta yarn that I experienced my second epiphany. I realized that I was creating and adorning heaven and earth. The sky was not the sky, it was heaven. As soon as I realized this, I could feel a change within me. My heart stopped beating for a moment, and I let out a big, joyful sigh. Now it was time to add pictures of me during my life around the mirror. I looked for as many of the photos that were in my memory, photos that stood out to me from my past about who I was and who I am. Somehow this is a mirror that not only reflects my image through imagination, but it's also a reflection of who I am through these pictures. I don't have all the pictures I would like to use, but wanted to put some down to close out this video and image making process. The rest will come in time. When I was done attaching these photos, I hung up this mirror and stood to look into the mirror or to look at the image. And while I stood there imagining my sparkle, my spirit, my image, I thought to myself, I'm standing between heaven and earth. Or when one used it as a pretend mirror, one could say that if I'm the image of God, then God is within the mirror in the foreground, behind everything, watching earth, heaven, and the space between. What metaphor do you find in this process? I look forward to hearing what you think, and if you had to create an image to reflect your divine nature, what would you create?